Introverts and extroverts are one of the most common ways to describe a person in today's world. But this was not the case till the early 20th century, until it was introduced by Carl Jung in 1910. And this was only just the tip of the iceberg. From psychoanalysis to analytical psychology, from ancient myths to alchemy to modern religion, his contribution was phenomenal. He was, as he would like to say, the clash of opposites. Carl Gustav Jung was born on 26 July 1875 in the small village of Cassel, Switzerland. His father, Paul Jung, was a Protestant clergyman in Cassel, and his mother, Emily Presswork, was the daughter of a well-established Basel family. Till the age of 9, Jung had no brothers or sisters, so he played his imaginary games. An early pattern that stayed with him all his life was an intense love of nature, a direct relationship with plants, animals, art, rock, and solitude. Although Jung was brought up in a Christian household, there were other religious influences on Jung, stemming from his mother's side and his maternal grandfather, who had the ability to contact with the spirit world. These dual religious influences of Swiss Protestantism and pagan spirituality reflected a dualism in Jung himself. He believed he had two different personalities, which he named number 1 and number 2. Number 1 was involved in the ordinary everyday world, and number 2 was associated with the uncanny world of his mother. But with the coming of his adolescent age, his number 2 personality began to slip away, and he identified more and more with his number 1 personality. He grew into a tall and handsome young man, giving him tremendous physical presence and charisma, especially with women. Jung first saw his wife Emma when she was 14 and he was 21. And even before he spoke to her, he knew that she would be his wife. 6 years later, they were married and had 4 daughters and a son. In his studies, Jung gravitated towards science and philosophy, devouring works of great thinkers like Kant and Nietzsche. He also studied spiritualism and the paranormal. He was fascinated with the human soul. He also investigated parapsychology and phenomena as hypnosis, telepathy, etc. One day, in a flash of illumination, Jung realized the discipline he had been searching for was psychiatry. As Jung later says, "My heart suddenly began to pound. I had to stand up and draw a deep breath. My excitement was intense, for it had become clear to me, in a flash of illumination, that for me the only possible goal was psychiatry. Here at last was the place where the collision of nature and spirit became a reality." At 25, Jung entered his years of apprenticeship at Bargholzli Hospital in Zurich as an assistant to Eugen Bleuler. Jung's doctoral thesis was titled On the Psychology and Pathology of So-Called Occult Phenomena, with his cousin Helena as his research subject. Her ability as a medium served as early pointers for Jung toward his discovery of the unconscious. But even before Jung, several other psychologists approached the unconscious. Sigmund Freud, with his development of psychoanalysis, had made important inroads into accessing the unconscious years before Jung met him. Their first meeting took place in Vienna in 1907, and they talked for 13 hours non-stop. Freud came to regard Jung as his son and heir. For Jung, Freud was a father figure, though only for a time, until their eventual break. The split with Freud was deep-rooted in Jung's concern about the mysterious nature of the soul. Freud never accepted that there was much more to the unconscious than his sexual theories. For him, Jung's number 2 personality was just another form of repressed sexuality. And so all of these tensions and several other factors led to their eventual break in 1913. After his break with Freud, Jung was devastated. He had begun to have vivid catastrophic dreams and waking visions. And it was this time when he delved into his unconscious and began exploring it. In his dreams, he met several entities, an old man with a white beard who called himself Elijah, and a beautiful young blind girl named Salome, and also a black serpent living with them. Later he met another winged figure named Philemon, who acted as his spirit guide. All of these experiences were later published as the Red Book. One evening, Jung's house was haunted by spirits who claimed that they came from Jerusalem because they couldn't find what they were looking for. And when Jung picked up his pen, they all evaporated, and for 3 days he was taken over by episode of automatic writing, producing the Septem Sermons or the 7 Sermons. All these experiences gave him much deeper insights into the inner working of the psyche and its connection to the cosmos. The core of his philosophy is the individuation process, which can be achieved by realizing what Jung calls the self. The encounter with the self is a centering which brings about a completion of the individual process. Towards the later part of his life, he lived mostly in solitude. In his Bollingen Tower, which he started building after his mother's death in 1923. There he fell living deeply with nature. He would do stone carvings and also would be visited by his friends, colleagues and students. His wife Emma died in the year 1955, and 6 years later, on June 6, 1961, Jung went back to the source from where we all came, peacefully surrounded by his family. If we have to take away anything from Jung's teaching, it is this in his own words. The decisive question for a man is he related to something infinite or not? That is the telling question of his life. Only if we know that the thing which truly matters is the infinite, can we avoid fixing our interest upon futilities and upon all kinds of goals which are not of real importance. If we understand and feel that here in this life we already have a link with the infinite, desires and attitudes change. In the final analysis, we count for something only because of the essential we embody. And if we do not embody that, life is wasted. In our relationships to other men too, the crucial question is whether an element of boundlessness is expressed in the relationship.